Are you saying that the format that I may or may not have built wasn't particularly approachable?
I think she called your baby ugly.
I think she did.
I'm just saying that it wasn't just technical people that got involved.
Oh,
because
okay.
that's the way I write my stuff, and then somebody makes it pretty.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax, HIPAA help is on the way.
Welcome to episode 405 of the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims with HIPAA for MSPs, and joining me is Donna Grindle of Carden, and we have a special guest today.
Yes, we do. For 405, we might as well 405D it.
That's right. Or as I like to say, when we're doing it, it's the 405 double D.
Oh,
there you go.
Keep it PG.
Yeah. So for those of you who are longtime listeners, this is not a new voice. We have Erik Decker joining us today. Hey, Erick.
How's it going? Good to see both of you again.
Yeah. So
every now and then, huh?
Interestingly enough, the stars aligned. We have episode 405 coming out on 405. And we're going to be talking about 405D because there's some new stuff about it.
Yay.
Yes, we have finally a whole new additional update of HICP. So that just dropped here fairly recently, and really excited about it.
I see it as a birthday present to me.
It was, actually. We were thinking about how do we make sure Donna gets the best birthday present that she possibly can get. And we made sure that HHS was going to be supportive of that.
Well, NIST did that with version 1.1 of the CSF. It came out literally on my birthday and added supply chain risk management. And I was like, I am so happy.
Well, I think what it is the government does, you know how like Marvel movies always come out in May? Well, the government always pushes out their updates in April. So it just happens to be that way.
There you go.
Oh, yeah. Fine. There goes the wind out of my sails. Appreciate you both. But, Erick, you have, since the last time you were on here, you're in a different role now. And then, I'm not allowed to say the Honorable Mr. Decker was the only thing. I couldn't call you that. But you've won these Baldrige Awards, and we could say, "Oh, Shaw, we knew you win." But do share a little bit about all the different things you're involved in, and then your day job.
Yeah. So I think I'm trying to remember what was the last time I was on. Has it been a few years?
Yeah. I think we had you on when we did HICP, maybe.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. HICP. So that was right at the beginning of the pandemic, 2020, March or April or so. So yeah, since that time, I have shifted over to Intermountain Health as their VP and CISO. Been here for 2 years now. It's such an awesome institution, and had the pleasure of taking the reins and helping to run this program here. In addition to that, I have started off as elected into the chairman role of the cyber working group, the health sector cyber working group. So that started last year, and it's a 2-year appointment with a potential 1-year extension, assuming that they are still okay with my leadership and direction. If that is the case, then I'll roll off of that at the end of next year. And so, and then of course there has been all kinds of extra excitement that's happened. So we have been working tirelessly on just making sure we have better coherence, across the various government entities. We've made some excellent headway, getting some executive sponsorship from within the executive side of HHS, and pushing out new task groups, new products. There's, I'm leading led an effort on conducting a landscape analysis on the hospital systems in the United States, which is also, released in coordination with HICP. And it's been incredibly busy, but incredibly exciting. I mean, this is a lot of talking about the stars aligning, a lot of the stars sort of coming together, from the various products that we build, the pushes to those products, the understanding of those products, and we're really starting to get that traction and understanding. Heck, I think even since the last time I was on, HICP itself, another update, became connected into law through Public Law 116321. So that was January 5th of 2021.
Yes.
The day before the Capitol riots.
That's why we think it got lost.
It was a really weird 48 hours, I will say that.
Yeah.
But Capitol riots aside, the law effectively says that if you have adopted 405D work, NIST work, or other regulated security practices, they're considered to be what's called recognized cybersecurity practices, and OCR is required to consider those the adoption of those recognitions if you do it for a 12-month period of time, when doing any kind of enforcement action. So that's a nice incentive, to say, here's a place, here's something very directional, here's something very specific that you can work on and help your organization along, and the government will recognize that as part of their enforcement work.
Well, yeah, we've gone through a good bit of that they're trying to have the carrot, not the stick approach.
Yeah.
But you still have to commit, and you have to be able to prove it. And
yes.
And, if anybody listening hasn't gone back, we did a whole step-by-step review of Nick Easter's video talking about what OCR expects proof to be. And we're a little partial to HICP because we've worked on it. And
I'm partial too, totally biased, but but honestly, this is the beauty of HICP. I mean, and you've worked on it. There's been so many people that have worked on this document, and that's why it's so powerful, in my opinion, because this is not one person's opinion. It's not one person's thought about what things should be. It's literally hundreds of people who have provided their input into it. Some, more than others, of course. You always have that when you're doing a collaborative project like this.
Yeah.
But the end result of all of that is always going to be what is the least common denominator, or is that the right? Yeah, least common denominator. Am I using the right mathematical equation of what everybody thinks is the most important thing? And so it's really hard to say, well, no, you shouldn't do that, when you've got experts all over the country that have said, no, you should do that.
Well, and we've got representation across the board. So, David's on the committee. He's MSP in a small market, and what we're doing. And then we've got physicians themselves, and so in the small versus the big hospital. And I really felt it was one of those moments where you're like, yay, I think. Was on one of our virtual meetings that was the whole working group, and we did all these little split out things, and I ended up with a group. I don't remember what they were talking about, but it was all these folks, and they had come up with this whole plan of what they thought could do. And it was like all these health systems, and finally I was able to none of that will work in a smaller medium environment.
Right.
And they're all like, oh man, just shoot us down. But that was why I was in that room.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And we need all of those constituents represented. I mean, because HICP posits around the three different org size types. We do have our government partners involved in the development of it, and the adoption of it, and the understanding of it. So it's, but I will say this, we're 5 years in now to HICP's release, and we for sure have made some great headway. We've got the 405D website now that I think that was launched a couple of years ago. It does get some great traction. However, even when I just mentioned at the top of the hour that I've been working on this landscape analysis, and part of that landscape analysis involved conversations with health systems. So we were doing quantitative reviews and systematic studies, as well as a qualitative review, and chatting with health systems to understand, and hospitals to understand sort of where they are. And rurals were part of that, rurals and smalls and such. And what's interesting, I remember there's one specifically where we were talking with them, and I asked them if they knew what HICP was. And they're like, no, I haven't heard about that. And yet they had actually, as part of the analysis, had submitted a HICP assessment. So like the connection of the dots, and I don't look, I mean, I don't hold that against them by any stretch of the means. I mean, these folks are doing every job under the sun. The CEOs are out there collecting ice. I mean, I've heard stories like that where they like run out of ice.
We've worked with them where they're the closest. There is no other facility.
Yeah.
You have to go into another state because they're out in the middle of nowhere,
Yeah, for sure.
And the closest is another state. And it is because you don't want those facilities to go away.
Right.
And that's unfortunately what's happening.
Yeah.
So, but let's real quick, because we, in our heads, we know all the things that we just talked about. So we've got the HICP, are we calling it HICP 2023? Is that what we're going to call
HICP
it?
2023. That's right.
And it's like it's a whole lot prettier. I can tell you.
Are you saying that the format that I may or may not have built wasn't particularly approachable?
I think she called your baby ugly.
I think she did.
I'm just saying that it wasn't just technical people that got involved.
Oh, okay.
Because that's the way I write my stuff, and then somebody makes it pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can
Very
tell.
pretty. I agree.
Yeah. I just read it because, but other people need a little bit more motivation. So it's definitely, you can tell that it's taken up a notch. It's not just a technical folks document.
That is correct.
But I know that we've got like a list, and it sits in your head because I know too many things. So the list that you tell folks of what are the big updates that we go with. And then we've got all these other things that come out around the same time. The website update is huge. It's going to be so much more informative. I'm looking forward to that. But let's just hit on the highlights of 405D changes for 2023.
Sure.
And then let's talk about all the other stuff that's coming behind it.
Sure. So I think the easiest way to describe this is it's an incremental update. So when we were going through the process, the whole task group got together, reread all the various practices, reread the threats, and re-baselined. Is this still current? Is this still something that we need to focus on, et cetera? So from a threat side, we changed it out. The first threat, we changed from just a phishing threat to a social engineering threat. And I think that makes a lot more sense, especially when you talk about business email compromise and those kinds of attacks that are coming through. You've got whaling attacks that come through. So whaling attacks are like going after the big, C-suite and just specifically targeting them, trying to subvert, con them into giving away either, credentials or financial information, et cetera. Or there's the other version of that, which is kind of connected to business email compromise, which is folks that are bad actors that pretend to be the CEO or the CFO, COO, and send those attacks on to the unsuspecting people, urgent message, you must go do X, Y, and Z. And, the frontline folks how do they deal with that? Smishing is a new one. How about, those are fun terms. So smishing is SMS, social engineering. Again, that one also connected kind of the business email compromise piece. You get the CFO sort of texting you, as it were.
Oh yeah, we've had a client have that problem.
Oh sure, it's amazing.
Send a text.
It's amazing. Just as a practitioner, you think like, how is it possible that these bad actors have this information? The phone numbers, and the names of the people in order to conduct those attacks. But we are beyond. Consider it like this: from the bad actor's perspective, there's a Google for understanding who the corporate C-suite is for any organization. Just ask it a question, and then that information can be at your fingertips. It is not hard. You have been profiled. LinkedIn is wonderful for everybody.
Yeah. Both good and bad.
And so, yes, exactly. So it's not, it seems surprising. It seems, very specific. It seems like, like how could they possibly have known? But it really isn't that difficult in this day and age for you to gather those kind of reconnaissance information. So from a HICP perspective, we put that in to the threat update. On the practice side, so actually not much has changed on the practices, which is interesting when you think about it, because that just kind of goes to show that good hygiene, which is what HICP is, should be pretty persistent. So let's take a look at what happened with COVID and the Spanish flu, and the types of mitigations that were recommended to do in 1918, and what we were doing in 2020. Mask up, wash your hands. Like that's what you did in 1918. That's what you did with COVID, so like those, the same kind of concept here with HICP is there. And like the practices that are inside of there are by and large consistent. And that's actually really good, because that just shows persistence. It shows as you implement these practices, you're going to get return on value, because they're not going to change that much. However, there were incremental changes. So I don't want to say it's like just a total static document. A few things that were updated, two main practices, practice 9 and 10. So practice 9 is focused on medical device security. So that one actually has a pretty significant rewrite, a lot more in-depth discussion and guidance on how to go about actually achieving some of those practices. So I think that one for sure warranted some updates and such. And then practice 10 is a governance section. So that used to just be policies, and now we upgraded that to oversight and governance, cybersecurity oversight and governance. So there's risk assessment in there now, there's policies in there, and cyber insurance guidance on how to actually go about trying to achieve that. So those are the major highlights of the updates.
Yeah, and then we've got the landscape doc. So the website and HICP coming out together, because the website was integrated with the HICP 2023. And then we've got this landscape document coming out that you can share with us.
Sure.
I read it, but there is a lot of information in there.
Yeah.
That was quite interesting on the analysis that was done.
Yeah. So let me talk about that. So we conducted a study on trying to diagnose what the problem set is for hospitals specifically in the United States. So we did not go after medical practices. We didn't go into any other subsector of healthcare. So no medical technology, no insurance plans. This was an effort of, for sure, a sector and government driven effort. HHS was highly supportive of this, highly driving this. National Security Council was incredibly interested in this. CISA interested in this. I mean, this went even beyond just HHS alone. And the idea was, we've seen the ransomware attacks happening and hitting hospitals all over the place. We know that ransomware and these style of disruptive threats and actions, this is not data security issues. I mean, it is from the sense that you can have leaks, of confidentiality and privacy. And during those attacks, you might have some folks, these ransom actors, steal the data to use that as a double extortion attack or something along those lines. And those are not new challenges. Those are challenges that we've faced for over 2 decades now. feels kind of nuts. But yeah. What's new, and I put in quotes new because it's also not new. It's almost like 5 years old now. Is the damage that can be done to the operational resiliency of a hospital. And then when you look at that from a public health perspective, now you really start seeing some compounding problems. So if a hospital goes down and it's, say it's the only hospital in a 50-mile radius, and that has an ED in it, or a trauma center or something, and suddenly they can't take patients, where are you going to divert to? Or look at a major region, so if you have a hospital system go down in a major region, And there are surrounding hospitals, and diversion, of course, can happen, and you can send patients off to those surrounding hospitals. Suddenly, those surrounding hospitals get inundated and flooded with patients, and they might be able to weather that for a period of time, but can they sustain that for weeks and months, which is how long these ransomware attacks and these disruptive attacks sort of persist, because it takes a long time to actually recover and bring yourself back up.
Yes.
Yes.
We try to get people to understand that. It's not like, flip a switch.
No, you can evict a bad actor, and then you got to rebuild. I mean, think about rebuilding your entire IT infrastructure. It doesn't happen overnight. You can't flip a switch to just do that.
No.
So, the landscape analysis was a tool to really try to understand and diagnose how severe the issue, how severe a problem this is, and understand what kind of resiliency our hospitals have. So we took a qualitative approach and a quantitative approach to this. So there are several studies that have taken, like Chime's Most Wired survey has a bunch of security questions inside of it, and a lot of hospitals submit for the Most Wired award. And so we took that information from the Most Wired study. And then the AHA also just published a really, really in-depth analysis of for those who participate in the AHA study, where you are on the spectrum, on a 1 to 4 sort of scale spectrum, to both NIST coverage and HICP coverage. So both of those in there. And that one also had demographic data associated to it. So what kinds of staffing do you have? What kind of cyber investment, is in place? What kind of program ownership coverage is there, and so forth. So there was really, really rich data. That one, the Chime data had 377 organizations, and those questions were more yes or no. So you ask a question like, do you have multi-factor authentication, turned on? Yes or no? Yes or no? And then the AHA study was 60 organizations, but the answers there were more sort of a spectrum, 1 to 4 coverage kinds of spectrum, because we all know, like, nothing in cyber is black or white, and so you have grades of coverage and grades of sort of implementation. So between the two of those, we were able to infer a lot of really interesting details. And then we had some conversations with participating hospitals. So about 20 hospitals decided to talk to us, and we were able to ask questions about, where things are with them, and got some information there.
So you guys got to sit down and have a conversation.
Yes.
With a variety of different folks at these.
That's right.
That's great news.
There. So both the smalls. So HRSA reached out to CEOs of the rural and critical access hospitals, as well as the large ones. And we, as you can imagine, the spectrum ran from, what are you doing about this? Well, I just bought a new tool, to a whole blown program with a major strategy associated to it, and a 5-year plan, and all of that kind of stuff. So huge spectrum, as far as like where things are. So and so that the landscape analysis was all about diagnosing the problem, and then once we understand what the problem is, HHS is going to take that and figure out what they can do within their authorities and remits to incentivize and sort of stimulate this area of healthcare to make some significant updates and changes. The thing about the landscape analysis that we did as well, so this was we took an adversarial approach. So how are we getting beat? That was the question. So we got data from the FBI, from HC3, from CISA, from all these different information sources to use that as like the vector in, and then you compare that to what's your capability, what kind of resiliency do you have, and then once it's kind of like a risk analysis, once you understand the threat and the vulnerability, we understand where we are, right? So that was a great approach, and the way we framed it all up was against HICP. So we used HICP as the basis of the 10 practices, basis of hygiene, basis of resiliency. And that's just, again, doubling and tripling down on this as our industry standard.
I think it's going to, It's like anything else that we do. It's, we can't call it riveting to read it, but it really did show us, and the way that it's compared to HICP, and you can see the different practices, it all lands really nicely. And I hope that it can be used to, as you say, stimulate.
Yes.
And David, he controlled himself through that, and I'm proud of him. But we get this thing out that we hope will help build that direction forward. And I believe you were in a session, I think it was you maybe, in one of the HIPAA Summit sessions that said where we want to get to is you have to beat us all to beat one of us.
Yeah. That was a statement from Chris Inglis, who was the previous National Cybersecurity Director. Brilliant man, wonderful man. I was sad to see him leave because I think he's a great leader. And we had this is something he was saying to all 16 critical infrastructure, which is, we need to set these systems up. And by system, I don't mean technical systems. I mean the industry.
Right.
We need the industry to be set up in a way that you have to beat all of us to beat one of us. And the simplicity of that statement is wonderful, but the depth of how hard that is to achieve is like oceans deep.
Yeah. Well, we start on the end of just make sure everybody understands they're on the cybersecurity team.
Yeah.
Let's, and we got to do it from both directions. We can't, this is not something you do bottom up or top down. You've got to hit both ends at the same time too. If you don't have that participation, but just like where you mentioned, having a real advocate, in HHS has made a difference. So that leadership involvement, regardless if it's a tiny organization or a huge one, or the whole healthcare industry, you've got to have that leadership engagement. And it feels like we really have it. Yes. And we're moving forward with it. And the proposals in Senator Warner's white paper, I don't know if, that's going to move anywhere. That's a whole nother thing. But it feels like we're doing things. And if this analysis, that's the official term, isn't it? It's the landscape analysis.
Landscape analysis, yes.
Yeah. If this analysis gives us that, at least, what is it that okay, yes, we're trying to build this and we need to understand it and we need an assessment, but is it just published to the world as a whole, or is it going to be directed to leadership so that we can actually do things with it?
Yeah, so it has multiple audiences. As I mentioned before, the interest in this landscape analysis was born out of both sector and government. And I mentioned that, HHS is involved and National Security Council is involved. There is a lot of people who want to know, why is healthcare in such straits that it's in?
Yep.
And so this document is going to them, and it's going to the sector, so the sector can see sort of where things are at. In tandem with all of this, the sector, the cyber working group, we have spun up a policy considerations task group. And so much like Warner's paper, we are proposing a bunch of policy things that HHS could do, as an option. And so we're going to be presenting that to HHS as well. And they're looking at all of it. So we're kind of looking at this from both like diagnose the problem and then treat the problem. Very good medical kind of terminology and medical situation.
Hey, that's our new statement for the year is Cardin says, privacy and security is a condition you treat, not a project you complete.
That's correct. That is correct.
Thank you, Eric. That means everything to me.
And it's not just an acute issue that you fix and it's done. This is a chronic problem.
It's a chronic condition you treat.
It's a chronic issue that you treat. So, so we're looking at things like what kinds of incentives, what kind of financial incentives should be, put in place here? What kinds of, and mind you, these are just suggestions. Like, we're not proposing, we're not mandating. We can't do that. We're the sector, but we're giving HHS our perspective on these things. We're providing suggestions on different programs that they could stand up. We've been talking about things like, why not have a FEMA style insurance backdrop, to a cyber attack for this sector? Why not have a federal incident response retainer with one of the large, I call them the Green Berets, the cyber Green Beret firms, that steps in and helps you out? Do we really need all 6,000 hospitals to, commercially contract for that themselves? Or could we just rely on something, or could they rely on something the government has already in place? Those are some examples. The financial incentives are more attuned to like reimbursement models and, things along those lines. I'm not promising anything there, but these are all discussions that are, being had. Workforce, just like in Warner's paper, workforce options, thinking about, why not have a loan forgiveness program for somebody who comes out of these, higher ed program and spends a stint, 2 or 3 years or whatever in critical infrastructure in order to stand up these programs that they need. I mean, healthcare, or not healthcare, higher education is expensive, and it's really,
no matter
really
what.
expensive.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, these folks, cyber talent is in high demand, but that could be an attractive way, especially the younger generation that is very more mission oriented than financially oriented, or motivated, I should say, not oriented. You get some of the younger generation that wants to make a mark, and they can do incredible good, in these hospitals, and if they can get a forgived loan, as a result of all of that, that's a win-win, So those are just some thoughts, things that are being submitted. HHS is actively looking at what to do in this space.
So stay tuned.
Yes, stay tuned. Yes.
So, and there's some statistics that you added to the report.
Yeah.
That weren't in the versions that those peons like myself reviewed. So, share those with us there.
Sure. So, this is one of the things when you're building something fast and you're getting feedback fast, to get stuff out there, you have a lot of parallel streams working. No, but we had one of our Harvard economists actually took the data and did some regression analysis to determine if there were any, statistically significant correlations. And there were 2 that I thought were really, really cool. One of them might only be cool to me. I don't know, but
well, we're fixing to find out right now.
So the first one, which I think is just really interesting and insightful, is there's a direct correlation between HICP coverage and NIST coverage. Now, you might have thought, like, well, duh, of course there is, but this is good proof that shows if you implement HICP, for every percentage of implementation of coverage of HICP that you have, you get a corresponding coverage to the NIST CSF, which just goes to show the inference there is when you do hygiene and you spend your resources and focus on that, you also get the programmatic side. You also get value in skills and momentum running in a full-blown cybersecurity program, which is what the NIST CSF is. And HICP was never built to be the NIST CSF implementation guide. Like, there's actually a guide for that.
Yeah.
HICP was built to be a hygiene, a set of practices that can mitigate these top threats that we have. So, I like it because it just goes to show it has significant correlation to the CSF itself. And if you invest in HICP, you're investing in the CSF, and
I think that we've
that coverage.
We've really said that from the beginning because of the you guys that got it started, and you put the cross-reference to NIST in there. And, we were already going down the NIST CSF framework,
right.
that was where we were going, because I see that we in healthcare needed to go some way.
Yeah.
And the privacy framework coming out and all of these things. So we were already down that path when HICP came out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I look at it and say, I wasn't trying to do a full-blown implementation of NIST CSF in the first place. I was using those concepts to build the foundation, and that's what HICP lets us do.
That's absolutely right.
And that's great news to see it's actually working statistically. I like to make things up, but it's way better.
Way better when we actually have data that supports it, right?
That's right. That's right. I feel so much smarter now.
So the other one, the other correlation that was significant was this is going to be for CISOs now. So we all know that the small organizations, they might have like one IT person that serves every role, IT director,
if they're lucky,
director of CISO, if they're lucky, right? Right. So, but for the probably more medium and large size organizations, not every cyber program is the same in across all the systems. You might think it is, but it isn't. So we look at 16 different factors on what ownership looks like. So the common things like, running a security operations center or governance or risk assessment or, identity and access management programs. That's one that varies. Not every CISO actually operationally owns that. Network security, very varied, there. So between infrastructure owning the firewalls and Active Directory and all of that versus the CISO owning the firewalls and Active Directory and all of that. So what we found was for every point of ownership that the CISO has, they have a percentage correlating increase in HICP coverage. And so what that shows is when the CISO owns it and operates it and is accountable for it, you get better hygiene, which makes
sense.
An interesting one. Would again hope that would be the case. And again, we got to be careful not to say causal, because this is the difference between correlation and causation. Yes. But there is a correlation between ownership and better HICP coverage from a hygiene perspective.
And that's an interesting one to posit the reasons. But I mean, to me, it seems just obvious that David and I know that if the focus is on IT. Right. And not security, because they think they're the same.
Right.
It's just your same old IT that we've always had.
Right.
And if the focus is on security, then it's not just an IT problem; it's a bigger issue.
Yeah, and you're putting a different mindset to the problem, and the devil is absolutely in the details. When you're running these things, like there are trade-offs that happen every single day. There are decisions that happen every single day. And if you're more incented to wash away, what the potential problem could be, and instead just kind of open things up, that can lead you to worse outcomes from a hygiene perspective. Might be better from a business perspective. This is the balance that we play in the cyberspace. We have to. We're here for the business. Obviously, we're here for our patients. We're here to make sure it's a safe operating environment. But the business has to run. you can't just like lock it all down and just, assume that everybody's going to be able to operate that way. But what I see from this stat is really more about there's a professional discipline associated to making those calls. And so when it's within the contours of the people that have been trained and have the experience for that, you get better hygiene, which again should hopefully be obvious, but it's nice to have some data to support it.
Oh yeah, the hygiene thing, you would think it would be easy to get that across in healthcare, but for some odd reason, it becomes more challenging than one would expect.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the other things that are also rolling out of the 405D team, because we have gotten a ton of stuff backed up that I'm real excited about getting out there so we can use it.
Yeah. So learning on demand knowledge on demand is one of the new products coming out. So that is a whole website and series of packaged content that you can take and deploy. So I think we're going to be able to set it up in such a way that, and maybe Donnie, you know this more than I do. You can just use it on the website itself, or you can grab it and install it inside your own learning management systems.
Yeah, there's a SCORM file. We've actually been testing the SCORM file.
Oh, nice.
That's, if I got a toy to play with, let's see if I can break it is kind of always my policy. But we're real excited about what we're seeing. Yeah,
and that is about as almost equal amount of content and coverage as HICP alone. The knowledge on demand work. So we're really trying to get educational tools into the hands of everybody, so you don't have to go reinvent this, and you don't have to go and think that this is an insurmountable issue to deploy and get some serious bang, right for the buck, right out of the gate. One other one I want to reference, it's actually not a 405D initiative. This was the Cyber Working Group. There's a new cybersecurity for clinicians set of video vignettes that was just released. And I think it's a 8-part series, total of like 45 minutes. They are professionally produced videos for the clinician, specifically for the clinician, made by clinicians. And you can get CME and CEU coverage for it as well. So for free continuing education credits and medical education, credits for those who participate in it. And again, same thing, SCORM files, built so that you can deploy it inside your own organization, or, you can link out to the video series itself. And that's all on the Health Sector Coordinating Council's website.
So plenty of other things that hopefully we can use to get the attention.
Right.
I know that, the ambassador team has just been kind of sitting here waiting to be able to go out and, to preach it, as we say in the South. I mean, I know the products that I've worked on, so it's kind of hard for me to know what's coming when and along the way. But you want to hit on what the other waves, the things I know we got Aussie and
enterprise risk management. Yeah. So there's we have a new publication that is in the works. It's cybersecurity for enterprise risk management, or as a component of enterprise risk management. And so, really tailoring and helping organizations along with those who have adopted ERM techniques. This is going to be for probably more of the larger organizations.
I'm already planning on finding a way to use that and
perfect.
Bring it down.
I love that. So it's really, how to connect cyber as enterprise risk and not just technical cyber risk and those kinds of things. There's 2 really great leaders that have been working on building that, and a whole team on building that. Lenny Levy and Lucia Miller.
Yeah, I talked to Lucia about send it to me when you feel like it's ready for me to start figuring out how to use it.
Yeah, they're waiting for me to look at it. That's where it's hung up right now.
Well, moving right along.
The other one is there's a publication that came out from the sector called OCCI, OCCI. I know, a little unfortunate kind of a name, but or maybe fortunate. I don't know.
We just say Aussie.
Aussie? Oh, you say Aussie? Okay. Well, I don't think we've converged on the acronym yet.
I know we have. I'm just trying to find something that's not Oxy.
Oh, okay. So this is a document that was built by the sector, and we're running it through the 405D process to release it out of the 405D vehicle. And it's essentially like the first 24 hours of a large scale event. How do you actually pull your emergency management and response teams together? What does that structure look like? These are not cyber events that you run. This is like running a business continuity of operations kind of process that is happening because of a cyber event. And so that document is wonderful. It was built in partnership with emergency managers as well as cyber people. And there's another task group going on right now in the Cyber Working Group that's building out the larger full scale incident response plan for these kinds of disruptions. So that's going to be released as well sometime this year for sure. And both of those are really important for this space, this adversarial, disruptive attack space that we're in, and how to help people recover faster at the end of the day when something bad happens.
Yeah. So we've got that. We've got training initiatives, and I know that there's been a lot of discussion about, where our focus needs to go next, because all of the things that we've got coming out. I'm real excited and partial to the Check Your Cyber Pulse thing, just because it's a great way to communicate with those who see it as an IT problem.
Yeah.
So I know there's been a lot of discussions, and as far as I know, other than the emails asking everybody to sign up where we were in our boot camp and I just saw them go by, have there been you guys that are in charge started setting those goals? I mean, we got all of this rolling out. We're going to be real excited about this, and then we got the other stuff coming behind it because we've got momentum and we've got help. So where do you see us going next? Great leader.
So we have a 5-year planning task group that, and we've actually, several companies have invested financial dollars into this to bring in Deloitte to assist us with a 1-year long planning process. So we're looking at this from the sense of, and again, this is both a joint sector and government initiative. And so when you look at where is healthcare going, and healthcare now, I'm talking about all 7 subsectors, the whole thing, not just hospitals, not just medical practices, insurance plans, payers, same thing, medical technology, lab, mass fatalities, actually in our sector, all of this stuff that pharmaceuticals, of course. Sorry, I know there's a big one that I was missing. We all have the same mission about caring for people, but we all do it in a different way. And we all have a different kind of threat landscape as well that we're managing around. And so this is major strategic initiatives is what we're talking about. So from getting into more of like the hospital at the home, or how AI sort of fits into the middle of all of this, or disruptive new economic inserts into this. You get like Amazon stepping in and trying to disrupt this whole healthcare space and such. But when I say disrupt, I don't mean negatively. I just,
no, disrupt
changing
is like
it
the
up,
startup
right?
thing.
Yeah, like the startup side of it, right? So, what do we need to be looking at 5 years down the road? How do we need to skate to that? And what's our plan, for this group, this shared joint partnership, to work on building out new products, building out new, again, like policy thoughts, things along those lines to help advise, and then ultimately try to continue to direct this organization, which is 400 organizations, 800 people, and growing. I mean, we had, I think, just in the last quarter alone, another 30 organizations join, which is amazing.
So now, when you say that, are you talking about the whole working group, or are you talking about
sorry, I'm talking about the whole working group. The whole cybersecurity working group is we've grown by 30 organizations. That's even more people,
right,
that join in. There's a lot of directional sort of thinking, strategic directional thinking that we're doing, and our next all hands meeting is actually going to be almost entirely focused on that. We're changing up the format a little bit so that we can just be very strategic in that meeting and get the input from everybody. And at the end of the day, at the end of the year, we will have a report and a plan that comes out of this. And that's what the cyber working group will be doing, and which is inclusive of 405D.
Right. So I guess I'm going to need to make sure I get that on my calendar. I don't want to miss that.
Yeah, come on.
So, and David's been very quiet. I'm not giving him a hard time or nothing. I'm just not going into that. We'll talk about it later.
I'm just taking it all in.
I know, right? But I do know, and we really appreciate your time joining us, because, you rock and all that stuff. But one thing is, I want to make sure we get in a plug for people joining any of these. It's perfect segue there to talk about the working group, joining the working group, joining 405D. let's get that out there. The plea for the volunteer, kind of thing.
Here, I'll try to keep it simple. For anybody who is an owner and operator of critical infrastructure and healthcare, you have an open welcome, an open invitation to joining this group, and you should be in this group. Not even just please join this group. You need to represent your constituents and your stake in critical infrastructure in our national healthcare system. And again, this is not just hospitals. This is plans and payers. This is pharma. This is medical technology. We do have advisors in the group as well. We do keep that capped at a certain percentage because we need the vast majority of the working group to be our actual owners and operators of the infrastructure itself. But that said, if you're a vendor or an advisor or consultant or somebody who's got a particular passion in this space, you can also submit your interest in joining. We sort of, on an annual basis, we look at what the mix looks like and then adjust accordingly. If you go to healthsectorcouncil.org, that is the main page for the whole cyber working group. 405D is a part of the cyber working group. It is one of the biggest task groups in the cyber working group. I think it might be the biggest task group in the cyber working group. That effort, if you go to 405d.hhs.gov, is the task group website for that. I'm sure show notes will have all these details.
Of course we will.
And and connect in. I mean, this is just there's an awesome momentum. There's an awesome energy happening right now. And if you've ever wanted to be a part of a movement where we're changing things, don't wait, because these horses are out of the barn and they're running at top speed.
Yeah, I mean, it is exciting to feel like you're at least doing something about a problem that we all know we have.
Right. And
so strongly encourage those. And, we keep trying to bring in, folks. I just made somebody join 405D, but Jen Stone,
that's a way to do it too.
I know. Well, she was already doing the ambassador work. She might as well, be on the team.
We'll get paid for it, right?
That's how we don't get paid. It's the way we go. So, but it is very. It's exciting to be part of that. You feel like you're actually doing something instead of just frustrated by it.
Right.
And although sometimes we do get frustrated doing it.
Sure.
But we also get to work with awesome people like you and get to know folks from all over the industry, which has been great. And I personally, I know how you're quite shy about, sharing your accolades, but you did win it was a major award, and it is not for Jilly, and it isn't a major award. Yep. And I don't know you just say what the award is, and you don't have to talk about it anymore, and we will not show your blushing face.
All right. It is the Baldrige Foundation Award for Leadership Excellence in Cybersecurity. So it's part of the Malcolm Baldrige Award construct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, congratulations.
It's a medal. So I got to be medaled in DC here recently. I really wish that they would have played the Star Wars music at the end of New Hope like they did. They did not.
Bummer.
But still, it was a wonderful thing. So thank you.
Well, congratulations, and we appreciate all the work that you do. And, since the first time we had you on, and you were just talking about how, you had what all you and Julie had to do to get that first HICP thing out, that first document, and to see your baby, who is not ugly, mature to where it is today.
Yeah.
I hope you understand your contribution is key to the rest of us.
Thank you.
Hearing you, when we have our little group, we've had our little get to know each other online things, and and person after person after person would be like, well, because of Erick, so you've planted the seeds, and I am glad that other people are recognizing it. And I know that's more than what you wanted to talk about it, but I
yeah,
saved it
you're
to
really
the
going to
end.
make me crawl into a corner now.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So, but we do want folks to stay involved, stay engaged, and we definitely need the help because particularly in the small and medium market, we need folks that work in the offices to be part of this. And I know that there are a lot of those folks out there. And if you think you're too small or too big or the wrong thing, then you're absolutely wrong.
Yeah,
There
right.
is no such thing. It is really about having a voice at the table because we need more of that.
Yep.
So, what else would you like to add about where we're going? And, other than I was disappointed when there was a round table of some group at the HIPAA Summit, and they were asking where to get the proper training, and not one of them said, "Help me with HIPAA podcast."
Oh boy.
It's okay. They're privacy officers. I gave them a break.
Yeah. No, I mean, you guys have been around for a long time, right? This
8
podcast.
years.
Yeah. I mean,
this
I
is
remember,
405, man.
Yeah, that's right. That's a lot of episodes. I had a funny little anecdote. One of my old jobs, I had lunch with one of my legal, one of the attorneys, that help support the organization, and we were eating a sandwich, and he was like, "You were just on Help Me with HIPAA," and I was like, "What? You know about Help Me?" He's like, "Yeah, these guys are hilarious. They're so much fun." So you have certainly reached the non-IT people. You've reached lawyers. You've reached a bunch of others. So hopefully you guys keep growing. No, just thank you. I think I remember when we launched HICP in end of 2018, and when we and I was out there like a fiend looking to see what kind of pickup did it have.
Mm-hmm.
I found you guys as you were as you did the first sort of foray into it, and I remember reaching out and chatting with you for doing it. So that's how we got that's how we got connected with one another. So, just you guys are doing awesome. I mean, you guys clearly, this is your own time, your own personal interests of trying
we just talked about all the volunteering with you. What the hell?
Yeah, I know. But you do it for a reason, right? I mean, it's fun. It's insightful. It's, giving back good to the world. And so keep it up. It's awesome.
Well, we appreciate that. And thanks for joining us. And as some of this other stuff comes out, I definitely expect that we'll have you back.
Okay.
To chat about more things. And we want to make sure, because we've already run over on your time, that we appreciate you.
Sure.
Yep. All right, folks, that is our show for today. Make sure you check out our show notes to get all the links to everything Eric talked about. It'll be there. Donald will make sure of it. You can find out.
Krista will.
Krista will. You can find out more about 405D at 405d.hhs.gov. All the information is there. Thanks again, Eric, for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. And remember, for all of us, that HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.